What's up, and welcome back to the Real Ballers Read podcast. On today's episode, we're excited to introduce a living legend, a manufacturer of culture, Halim Flowers, who is an artist, author, and activist from Washington, D.C. After being sentenced to life in prison at the age of 16, Superpredator was the title that he was given and had to fight hard to denounce. Held in a cage for 22 years and 2 months, Halim began crafting his method of artistic expression to find some sense of peace in a hopeless place before he resurrected back into the real world. Now Halim uses photography, painting, poetry, publishing, spoken word, fashion design, business, and more to lead a love revolution. Halim's purpose is to live the love that he wants to see in the world, to inspire others to love radically beyond the superficial barriers that separate us from seeing how we are all connected to each other. Now here's our incredible conversation with Halim.
We got all your books, and reading them the other day, you had your point.
Damn, you got all of them?
Yeah, we got all of them. But no, you said let them see you sweat, right? And just with everything that you've been posting, as long as we've been following you, you clearly do that. So we had nothing but consideration just for everything you had going on. It's really just a real blessing to be on the phone with you now. So we just really appreciate it, for real.
I really believe, and I know I put it in one of the books. I actually need to go back and reread the books, as I wrote it. Some of them was written over a decade ago, and now having the creativity shifted towards visual art and fashion and design. It's like I can use a review of where my mind was at that time, and I think anyone who reads the books can appreciate better where I'm at now, because you can see that it was a plan. Like, a lot of people be like, well, how do you feel being successful so fast in the visual art world? Like, well, most of the stuff that I paint about is what I wrote about. So It really isn't fast. It was a 22-year process just to get to the point where I can express it through paintings and fashion. But I already put it down in the books. It's just people wasn't reading the books. And I think that's what's important about what you guys are doing, is that we have this culture in place in our inner city communities that doesn't celebrate young Black male intelligence. If it's not athleticism or, the intelligence, because it really takes intelligence to be a gifted rapper. And I think the intelligence components of it gets overlooked by the other elements of the hip hop culture lifestyle that leans more towards, being a tough guy. But it really takes intelligence to be able to compose good music, not just a one trick pony, but really to have a career as like a Kanye West or Drake and a Future, where you can sustain what you're doing over a period of time. It takes intelligence and intellect, and the intellect comes in the composing of the song. The intelligence comes into how you are able to commercialize it and market it and build other horizontal brands off of that one talent, and then make those horizontals vertical. So you have a Jay-Z, and then he does Rockaway, and then they're doing the films with state property, and then he gets into other things like, other investments that's, so he took the rap as a foundation and horizontal out, and then from all of those different horizontal ventures made those vertical, and I don't think that you can do that without reading. Not just think that reading is a very underestimated component of our culture that needs to be celebrated and encouraged. Even in this modern age where a lot of information can be obtained through audio and visual, but I really believe that reading does something to the brain that makes you more efficient in how you have to navigate through the world as an entrepreneur who fits within these social constructs of being Black or poor, and then add on top of that returning citizen, and not having an opportunity like you guys to go through a formal educational ivory tower institution where you just inherit social capital, professors, and you join sororities and fraternities and things of that nature. So, but yeah, it's just, you know, man, I just think reading is important, and anything that we can do in a way of intersecting high fashion, fine art, sneaker culture, hype beast culture, and storytelling, right, with a love for literature and making that a part of the it culture, you know, reading, you know, and collecting books. I think it'll be a huge, one of the greatest impacts that we can make to our culture is what we know to be Black culture in America.
Yo, that's crazy, yo. We literally, this is all we talk about. I mean, that's nuts to hear you say that. And you know, it's wild. It's wild because like coming up, us being tall, everyone would think that we were just like basketball players, always like, yeah, like you must be a baller or whatever. But it was our mom. Yeah, exactly. But it was our mom that would always tell us real ballers read. Like that's where it came from, was her always making sure that we knew that our own like intellectual growth, spiritual growth as young Black men was like what was most important. And it's crazy because, you know, there was a minute where we weren't reading much at all, really didn't like school, but, you know, we got into college and just kept reading, and we were like, damn, like, you know, she really planted that seed in us. And, you know, at first it was just about sports, but then, you know, as we got more interested in fashion and music and design in general, you're exactly right. Like we're trying to, like, we don't see any reason why all of those things can't blend with literature in a way that makes it as exciting as it really is, you know, as well as things like, you know, VR and tech in general, right? They don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and I think like with me, being a manufacturer of culture, so it's like you're dancing in between this dichotomy of current relevant culture and historical iconic culture. And so my job as a manufacturer of culture, understanding that young people hit this, no matter the upbringing, you hit like this point in your life where you just like rebel, you don't want to read, and because you just don't see the importance of it at the time because it's not trending and cool. It's like, what do I do in the way of product development, whether it's my own hip hop albums, spoken word albums I'm working on, or my bags, my sneakers, my hoodies. What am I doing to make it where I can take a Lil Baby and a James Baldwin to find next time, and Lil Baby song where he was talking about, you know, I forgot the name of it, but it was like a George Floyd type of anthem type song we had. And like,
the bigger picture.
The bigger picture. Can I take the bigger picture and the find next time and create text and iconography that hits with the younger generation and the older generation, and in between? It's like, damn, like that was a genius poem, or that was a genius sneaker you designed or bag that captured the essence of the potency of the intersectionality of that song and that essay, and how it was relevant then and it's relevant now, and how what he's doing now is relevant now and would have been relevant then. It's just a different form of expressing it, you know. And you know, for me, that's my greatest responsibility, to appeal to all generations, you know, to make those type of timeless products that represent that type of legacy that we create as creators of this Black culture, and keeping it going forward, you know, because the goal is equity. You know, the goal is just not like to be controllers or create. I mean, it's not to be creators, but to be owners of the things that we create. You know, so and when that becomes a desire, instead of like I want to, you know, be playing the NBA. Like, nah, I want to play in the NBA, but I also want to own a team, and I also like want to have my own NFT platform, and I don't have to worry about Dapper and Top Shot like I'm doing, like Steph Curry just did. He did his own thing with his 3-point. He minted his own NFT. You know, for when he broke the 3-point record and created an NFT collection out of all the 3-pointers that he ever made. So to me, that was a boss move. And that's like what we should be aspiring for, instead of just not. And I really believe that by us now coming up in communities with people who are venture capitalists and, you know, holders of equity, that we don't have that type of cultural frame of reference, and the only way most of us gonna get it is through reading. You know what I'm saying? It's just not a reality in our neighborhoods and communities to know about private placements and, you know, what is the difference between equity and debt, you know, on an ownership level. You know, instead of like debt, we think about credit card bills. Not that someone like is $500 million in debt, but they $500 million in debt because they got financing for a $5 billion venture that's not even profitable yet, but it's about to go public, and everybody is about to get rich.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You were saying that in, I'm trying to think, it might have been What Our Fathers Never Told Us, or Makings of a Minister. I forget, but you were like,
and Nicodemus too.
How is America like trillions of dollars in debt and still seen as the wealthiest nation? I had never even thought of that in contrast, but it's not even about the debt. It's about like what they can produce, their value, their mindset, and just like their, you know, power and authority that they've accrued over time. A big thing that I've picked up from what you've been saying and what I've read, though, that I think is really, really wild, where like a lot of people see art and economics as being opposites. You see them in harmony. Like where folks see like a wall there, you see like a great opportunity to bridge the two. So like I wanted to ask like how you really came to that like analysis and not, you know, feeling like they were at war with each other.
For me, it was like having an opportunity to study financing and accounting and economics. So through like what accounting does, it shows you like what's assets, you know what I'm saying? And you see that, oh, and economics shows you like when you think about money, you just think about currency and coins and checks. But when you look at the money supply, M1, M2, M3, you realize that the major part that's moving the economy is M2. And you don't even like have an understanding of what an overnight repurchase agreement is and how these things move the markets with the banks and the corporations. And so it just opens your eyes up to seeing on a different level. And studying financing, you learn that wealth is a created thing, right? So this paper currency that we know to be the United States dollar, which is the international reserve currency, is just a promissory note from the Federal Reserve Bank. And the Federal Reserve Bank is quasi federal, but it's privately owned. It's not, you know, publicly owned. And once you understand that you as an individual, that you can create promissory notes, and you learn that from, you know, when I went to college, and even before I went to college, we were studying Uniform Commercial Code. So once you study business law, once I studied business law in college, after I had my informal self-taught that I learned from my mentors in prison,
I learned about the Uniform Commercial Code and like how any credible business law book that you go to in college, the first thing in the appendix will be the U.S. Constitution, and the second thing is going to be the Uniform Commercial Code. You know, and like, and understand this, you understand like money and wealth is a thing that's created. So when you calculate Vitalik Buterin, his net worth, the founder of Ethereum, they're going to put his net worth at the billions because he created the Ethereum platform and the currency. And now that it has been accepted as a medium of exchange and a store of value, it adds to his net worth, right? So for me, someone who has the opportunity to exhibit at museums and sell artwork through galleries, through the formal channels. So now what happens is, okay, I can do this painting right here. So I had a painting like this, and I sold it. Was kind of like this size, but more like on the horizontal. And I'll send you the link too. So I sold it. It was sold for like $18,000 2 years ago. So now it's being resold for $48,000, right? So now what you look at, okay, $48,000, if we round it out to 50, and then you come in the vault, this is what I call my vault. You see, I got all my sneakers and stuff here. But you see, I got like the paintings in here, right? So I always try to keep like 50 paintings in the vault. These original paintings, never sold. First painting ever, right? So if I multiply that by 50, right, I got 50 paintings in the vault that I created, and my value for my work in the secondary market as a visual artist right now is rounded out to 50,000 a painting. Then we do like 50 times 50, and we talking about 2.5 million. You know what I'm saying? So just that alone adds to my net worth that can't be denied. And what I'm doing is I'm literally creating wealth, right? So now once you get to the next tier level of financing, what I'll do is I'll go and get me a $2.5 million insurance policy on it, get the representative, if I wanted to like to get a loan to invest in a venture or something like that, I can go to a bank and have the bank to send an art advisor here to appraise the work, and then I can take out a loan and use my artwork as collateral. And it don't matter what my credit score is. Only thing they want to do is keep the paintings as collateral. You know what I'm saying? But you have to have an art collection that's valued over $1 million. You see what I'm saying? So now, as my work is being sold more and my popularity grows and the value of these things that I'm creating is increasing in value, most artists, they look at it as bad when their work sells for more in the secondary market because they believe it hurts their primary market. But with me, I'm not even just, I'm like, oh, okay. So you go and you auction my work off for $1 million, right? I'm always going to keep 50 pieces in the vault. So now I'm worth 50 million just in art. And then I can go and literally and paint as many paintings as I want and use my creativity as a wealth asset, right? That's constantly appreciating in value. You see what I'm saying? So I take these things that I'm creating, and this is talking about paintings. So I take these paintings and then I create a trust fund for my daughter that wears those. When I transition, she's a beneficiary, but she can't sell them. She can just lease them and lend them and license them to museums and galleries and different, you know, right now you see John Michelle Bosky out on clothes, on sneakers, jackets, the Brooklyn Nets jerseys, the Brooklyn Nets basketball. So his estate is licensing his imagery. So I'm teaching people like, look, I'm strategically allowing you to collect the work so that when the time comes and the work gets into 7, 8 figures, even if I'm here or not, even if we're here or not, your descendants can have this as beneficiaries of a trust, but they can't sell it. We don't want them to go through what Dr. King's children went through, arguing over selling the Nobel Peace Prize model. What they could have did was had it been set up in a trust, it could have been leased and lended to different museums, and it would have became a asset of residual income, right? So a person could take this painting that they bought from me, and instead of and this could be like years, you know, because Basquiat been dead for 30 years. So this could be 30 years after my transition, and somebody, family, or maybe you still around, you had a painting, you know, and like you are able to take this painting and license it, you know, to different entities for different skateboards, you know, basketball courts, you know. So it's really like through reading, because I didn't have access to people in my community, in my household. And I understand why, because my parents were born during segregation and their parents was born during the Depression. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't have, it wasn't even practical for us to have this type of information because we didn't have access due to our racial social construction to even be able to ensure and monetize how we can do today. So now that we have the opportunities, we have to develop a new culture. And it comes from like, it's gonna come from podcasts, it's gonna come from like, my album I'm working on is like, all I'm rapping about is this. You know what I'm saying? Like creating money, making money, getting your own token, your own, you know, blockchain and like smart contracts and, you know, like, and creating, through paintings, you create heirlooms and appreciating assets. So like the goal is about making money, not making money. You're literally making money. This is what Vitalik Buterin did. He made money. You know what I'm saying? And we can do this too. And we don't have to always be like investing in somebody else's idea that's making money. Like, and that's my thing. And like, if I was in a position, I was watching an interview recently with Tyler, the Creator, and he was like, man, what the fuck is an NFT? And he was like, I just don't understand it. It's just pictures of monkeys. And I'm like, well, at least he's like, because I like Tyler, the Creator, but he don't understand what's going on with the decentralized autonomous organization and the blockchain and smart cards. Only thing he's getting is seeing is the monkeys, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. That's the back end. You know what I'm saying? Like you got these boys like Vitalik Buterin, man, that's on the front end, and they're creating a whole new system of wealth. Literally, you know, and if we don't be on the front end of this and stop, just like I saw Kevin Durant partner with Coinbase, like Kevin Durant, Jay-Z, Yeezy, they can have their own coin. And I actually messaged this to Yeezy. I'm like, you got the opportunity to be richer than Mansa Musa, bro. Like people will line up, your shoes are the new gold. And people will line up for days to get your shoes. So if the only way they can get your shoes is through the Yay coin, they're going to take their fiat currency to get the Yay coin to get your shoe. And then you trade your coin on the exchange created by you, right? People are going to come to your exchange just to get your coin. So then you can control the supply of your currency to have the value of it to go up. So now you got your STEM player, but the only way you can get your STEM player, go to your concert, or get your sneakers or your clothes is through your coin, your token. And with that right there, you can literally mint your way into being way more richer than Elon Musk, or, you know, because the Yeezys are the Yeezys, you know.
Yeah.
And the culture is the culture. Our culture is the new gold. It's always been gold.
Yep.
And that's the importance of reading, because you understand like Josephine Baker, James Baldwin, Charlie Parker, you know what I'm saying? Miles Davis. Like James Baldwin was like me. He was self-taught. He didn't go to college. He just up and went to France and was him. Like, and it goes to show like, we don't have to go to y'all institutions. Like we are the culture. All I got to do is go to France with somebody gonna give me a reasonable chance, and I start penning my own essays. You know what I'm saying? Like Josephine Baker, like, okay, y'all can whiteball me, but I can go to France and dance. You know what I'm saying? And then make y'all, Jimi Hendrix, he wasn't accepted in America. He went to Europe, right? he didn't have formal school on how to play the guitar. He just had the culture that he had in him, and that was his wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was gold. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we can't be stuck on, like when you tell your parents, what's that crypto? What is backed by? Like the money ain't backed by nothing. The US dollar not backed by gold. And like gold only has value because we attach value to gold. You know, so you got to understand that through reading, I learned the difference between value in exchange and value in use. Value in exchange, air and water is little next to nothing. But value in use, air and water is everything. It's the supreme utility. So it's just like, for me, like it's so important for us to read as a people, because most of us don't have the opportunities to live in communities and households where the things that we're talking about today is common, right? And this is how people function, like people making these type of deals and engaging in this high level of finance and wealth creation. We don't have that. So we have to read it first and then become it. And then through the becoming, then we capture it in the music, the sneakers, the clothes, the documentaries, the podcasts. And then it's like, it becomes normal. You know what I'm saying? So we definitely just got to read though, man. It's important. But sometimes, man, the reading is just not in the book. Like I said, it could be on a hoodie. It could be in the cover of the vinyl record. You know, like reading the lyrics on genius.com. Reading the message on the sneaker where it's just like money supply, M1, M2, M3. I just sold a pair of sneakers like that. And I did an audio file for each sneaker that I sold. So whoever bought that sneaker for that year, they got the file with it where I'm breaking down the iconography and the text on the sneaker. So we got to be creative and not just look at reading as just in a book, a hardback or paperback book. It might just be like on a hoodie.
Yeah. No, I got your 2007s. So
you got them? Did you get the audio file?
Not yet.
Oh no, you're gonna get that. Send me. I'm gonna email that to you ASAP.
All right. Good looks. Yeah, no, because I got the order confirmation on flight, but they haven't like sent or anything yet. So I assume that the audio is coming later.
I'm gonna make sure I post that, because like most of the sneakers were sold in pre-order. So
right.
I gotta and I was like sending the link there, but I'm gonna like put a message. I'm glad you let me know. Like if you didn't get your audio file yet, let me know.
All right,
and then what you do is you hold that, right? And when the HBO documentary come out next year, early next year, late this year, God willing, when there's more popularity on my brand and my name and my story, you take that audio file and you mint it into an NFT collection. Because people going to want the story. Now people going to be like, oh, he did that, dropped that. Because like the director of the film, he bought 2014. And he was like, damn, I thought 2013. He said, I thought it was going to be like just 30 seconds. He said, man, this thing was like 15 minutes. And he was like, you did that for every year? I'm like, I did it for every year. He was like, man, I want to hear all of them. I said, you can't hear all of them because they're owned by the people who bought the sneakers.
Oh, fuck.
You know what I'm saying? I can't give you access to. So now people going to be like, man, and meant that. I want people going to come and buy. Like, I want to buy all of them. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that what I'm doing is not only am I creating a product that you can wear, but it's a collectible. I know for a fact that the shoe will be able to sell on the secondary market. Right, I know a black guy right now who's creating an insurance company for sneaker collectors, right? So you can insure it, you can resell it, and you can take the audio and make that a source of revenue through minting it into an NFT collection. So now you're adding value to the consumer, and you're intersection in high fashion, sneaker culture, fine art, and storytelling. And then you can transcribe the audio and turn it into an ebook because you own it.
Yo. The vision, yo. The execution.
Yeah. And make that an NFT collection.
Oh, my God.
Man.
And that's creating wealth.
Yeah. No one has ever broke it down in this way. Like, I've been learning about it peripherally in the last year, NFTs, crypto, but like no one has broke it down as simply and powerfully as like actually making money. But it is through your like understanding of it and just like all of the fields that you connected to. Because I think a lot of it too, or at least what I've read and heard and seen about crypto and NFTs, folks are talking about making money just for the sake of making money. They're not talking about art. They're not talking about art as an heirloom. They're not talking about, you know, the
culture
assets.
as gold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just
none of that.
having this all framed together, the way you broke it down. It's just so beautiful. I'm very grateful for that. So, wow. Yeah, that was $1 million worth of game. More.
Yeah.
More than
that's
that.
The thing is like, what I realize is that I've been given the gift to simplify complex matters in the way of like economics and finance. And most people who have that information, they have a problem with like simplifying it for people who don't understand it and creating examples and similitudes to show the application of the information. The information is nothing without the application. That's how we gain the wisdom, through the experience of applying it and the trial and error that comes with it. So for me, it's like realizing that I had an opportunity to be shielded from a lot of distractions that you have in society. I didn't have those distractions while I was in this, so I was able to just focus and formulate and really ponder and articulate. And that's why I like doing like podcasts and interviews, because as I'm explaining it, I'm becoming more efficient in the explanation, and that increases the efficiency in the application.
Yeah, as well as knowing how to explain it differently to different people, and
Right.
you know, like say it the same, but as well as like say things differently depending on who you're talking to. You're like expert at it now. Yeah, you know, another gift that I realized that you have when you were talking earlier about bridging the bigger picture and the fire next time was that you talked about how in prison, like you would be moving like an older brother just off of the way that you behaved, but you were still young. And, you know, I guess you didn't really say that it was a gift or a curse, but just the way that you were talking about bridging generations like that, I'd never really thought of how being an old soul is like a gift in that way, of being able to know cutting edge technology like that and also be so deeply rooted in like the history and culture of your people. So that's really incredible too.
Yeah, one of the things I learned, I forgot where I read this at, but it was like, you know, to connect with people, like study their heroes and their icons, you know. And for my granddad, it was Charlie Parker. You know, his generation was the jazz, the bebop. Charlie Parker created something new. And Jay-Z and them don't mean nothing to him like that. His man is Charlie Parker and Joe Louis, you know, and when you can watch a documentary on YouTube about Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano and Charlie Parker and Miles Davis and Coltrane and create things around it, whether it's conversations or poetry or books, the elders respect that. You know what I'm saying? And they give you more culture, more information, and then you can begin to sample from those great culture creators from back then. And it adds more to your repertoire when you come into the present moment, because the average person, your majority of people your age, they don't appreciate culture enough to reach back into historical references. they're going to be satiated with Gunna and Future and Pusha T and, you know, Lil Baby and, you know what I'm saying? And it's nothing wrong with that because that what satiates them. But for me as a manufacturer of culture that aspires to do it on an epic level in so many different ways, it's important for me to be tapped into contemporary and historical, you know, to really, because like forensic science is like studying the origin of things. And when you can understand what makes Kanye because he's able to sample just that in that gospel joint that you was listening to every Sunday with grandma, but he caught it and he was able to take that and make it his own. And when he came to the present culture and manufactured this sound, it's like, damn, it's like it tapped into some ancestral inside of people today that they're not even aware of on a conscious level. It's their great grandma that was dead, that's been dead for years, who from her great grandmother, who was a slave or was enslaved, and this was the hum that they would play to be able to have that energy to be able to pick that cotton or that sugar and to keep their soul satiated, man, with just those Negro spirituals. And when he sampled that in the music, you're tapping into your ancestors and you don't even know it. You know, your connection to the drum or to that hum, right? And that's how you're able to do it on a high level, because you really have to, I believe anyway, in my humble opinion, you have to always go back to the origin of things, because we're just a composite of our ancestors. And we just don't inherit proclivity towards diabetes and high blood pressure and breast cancer. Like, we also inherit feelings, you know, and emotions and trauma and joy, you know, and suffering and transcendence and genius, you know. And so for me as a manufacturer of culture that really, really wants to do it in the most efficient way in so many different horizontal areas, it's important to me to, like, because you might look at a sneaker or a painting and it might have a reference to Jersey Joe Walcott, and, you know, Coogee Rap and Henrietta Lacks. So you be like, damn, what's the connection between Jersey Joe Walcott, a boxer, Coogee Rap, an 80s rapper, and Henrietta Lacks, a lady who they took her DNA and made the immortal healer cell that they still using to cure cancer and fly to the moon and all that today? Like, what's the intersectionality of that? And then, you know, to be able to put that together in such a way that it creates an aesthetic, right? Whether it's a painting or a sneaker, but it's like, it's beautiful when people see it, and when they put it on, it functions well. That's what I love about Yeezy. It's not just design, like, they really function well. The product is really comfortable, you know, and if you can create something that's visually pleasing and the functionality of the product is of a high quality as well, and it has that cultural messaging that taps into what's relevant today, and that ancestral stuff in your DNA that you're not even conscious of, that's on a subconscious energy, vibration, frequency level, that's when you tap into the genius. Because you making people feel something. Mm-hmm. And they don't even know what they feeling, you know. And we just got to do that from a space of love and understand, like, the importance of doing it from a space of love, because when we don't do it from love, then it could come out as like a sound or a genre of music or clothing that encourages self-destruction. You know what I'm saying? And it's being used as energy by the people, man, to harm themselves and others. You know, and me, I'm never going to, like, speak down on anything, because I understand where it comes from. It comes from reality, and it's going to take like a new reality and a new culture to be able to take that reality of our lives in our communities to where as though we don't got to drill no more, and we can be comfortable and not have to drill. You know what I'm saying? Because like drilling is a reality. People really spinning the bin, and you know they doing it, and it's just a part of the culture. But we want to take that and those who manufacture culture from that reality, and we're going to transition them into a more loving understanding and reality, because we're going to create wealth in a way in which we're going to create a new community and a new culture where people can be comfortable and people can feel safe, and people don't have to operate from the desperation of poverty and prison. Because when you're in the most quote unquote richest society in the world that has the highest GDP in the world, and you in all these inner cities that's experiencing this hyper gentrification and stagnant wages, it creates poverty, creates desperation, and people who have an intergenerational reality of controlling industries that create culture. They understand your desperation, so they'll reach to our youth who have this genius to compose this music, and they know they're desperate, and they'll throw them, yeah, here go $1 million deal. And to this desperate youth, he's like, man, I'm taking this. You can't come to him and be like, man, don't do that type of music, man. It's destructive. Like, he's like, man, it's either this or selling dope and robbing. And the one who's controlling the industries and the creation of the manufacture of wealth and culture, they know and they prey upon this desperation. And they know that the majority of the youth going to take it, you know, and they're going to keep rapping about what they're going to rap about, you know. And Chance the Rapper, he articulated that in such a beautiful way, because he was like, man, when they came to me, he was like, I was cool. Because my dad, you know, like when I went to the Oval Office, I wasn't in awe, because my dad was always positioning me to meet people in power. So when that came my chance with my culture that I was creating, they called me to these offices and offered me a couple of $1 million. It was enough for me to turn it down, because I understood what true wealth creation and power was. You know what I'm saying? And I knew that I could move independently. So when you don't understand that wealth is a created thing, and you existence in these pockets of poverty, and you know you're desperate, and you know we'll do things for wealth that can cost us our lives internally and externally. And when we obtain the monetary compensation, if we don't have the right culture within, even that becomes a source of our destruction, because we had Mike, the king of pop, we had Prince, we had Whitney, we had John Michelle Basquiat, we had Charlie Parker, Billie Holiday, we had Jimi Hendrix, and we lost them, because even though they were manufacturers of culture on the most highest level in the areas that they were doing it at, the infrastructure that were in place and that are in place, it wasn't conducive to love. And it wasn't loving to them, though they received monetary compensation and fame. The way that those industries move is not conducive to love. So if it's not conducive to love, you can have all the monetary and material compensations in the world, but it's killing you inside. And what we're doing is we're losing wealth creators and culture manufacturers of the most epic level, Whereas though we could have had them a little bit longer to really like to continue the manufacturing of more culture creators like them. You know, so we lose a lot when we lose a Jimmy and a John Michelle in their 20s and Charlie Parker at 32 and Malcolm and Martin at 39. You know, so and even Mike at like 50 or 51, Prince, you know. And so, you know, we just got to understand that, of course, reading is important, creating wealth is important, understanding what wealth is, manufacturing culture, all those things are important. But if you don't have the love inside for yourself and others, then even the material things that you acquire to escape the poverty ultimately becomes the same things that kill you, you know. And for too long, we've seen that happen to some of the best manufacturers of culture that we've had.
We've kind of danced around the topic just in terms of the depth of everything that you're saying. But in your book too, you talk about a class that you had with Mr. Reeves, where you were like actually naming things, like in The Power of Adam, you were naming what things are. And I wanted to ask you what your relationship to time is and what you think time is. Because in the way you're talking about both money and how you use your time as a like asset and to invest, and just your life experiences in general, seems like you would have a very special relationship to time. So I wanted to ask you about it.
For me, studying, shout out to Mr. Reeves. He had the opportunity to message him on LinkedIn the other day. I gotta call him. I haven't talked to him in a while, but definitely added to my development, you know, as a human being, and really just as something simple as understanding, you know, the words that you use to describe yourself and your reality, which is important. And then like studying Albert Einstein, general theory of relativity, it's all about like understanding that how the person standing on the train platform versus how the person on the train relate to time and space differently because of perspective and positioning. So the one on the train sees the ping pong ball going at this speed versus the one who's outside on the train platform and sees the train just go past. Their perception of how fast the ball is going is different on the train. So for me, understanding that even time is a social construct, and we've created these calendars and to identify the name of what we call days and years and months, and you know, we create these holy holidays and all the emotional attachments that we give to that. For me, the only time is now and the only space is here. Everything else is just a man-made social construct. This is DC, this is New York, this is United States of America. 700-800 years ago, those names didn't exist for where we are today. This space wasn't Georgetown, and it wasn't Washington's District of Columbia. You know, it was just a space that probably had a different name to a different group of people. And before that, something different to another, whether it just was animals and not people. So my perspective on time is the only time is now, and the only space is here. And all the other constructs that people have created, they exist, I just don't give credence to them, to me as an individual. So my goal is to die empty. And what helps me in the process of reaching this goal is that I know, for me, I feel like the only time is now. So I'm not really too caught up in tomorrow or yesterday. I'm just caught up in now, and I'm approaching now with a sense of urgency, but yet not an urgency that creates anxiety, but an urgency that has appreciation at its foundation. So every breath that I'm taking it with gratitude and grace, because I know so many who had that opportunity, taken from them at young ages, So for me to be able to just breathe, especially after we just went through this global pandemic where breath was a form of death for many, it intensified my sense of gratitude for now, So for me, the only time is now, and understanding that, it's not infinite in this state for me, and whatever that I want to do, I need to do it now. And that way, and I can approach it with an urgency of gratitude and not fear or anger. I can give all that I have to the moment, and whether it's internal or external. Because some of the greatest poems or songs or paintings I ever done, they never came out. They just was in me, and I never got the opportunity to get them out for whatever reason. But I'm doing all I can now to be present now and enjoy this gift, because it definitely is a present, and to give all I have now in this space here, and it's just simple to me. The only time is now, the only space is here, and we know what you want, start from where you at, work with what you got so you can get what you want. So, and so it's just simple for me. That's why I don't be knowing what day it is, what's the day, like what month. I just know when it comes time to pay the mortgage.
Wow.
I forget, like, it's the 26th. Like, oh, damn, let me pay that before the 1st, Other than that, I don't keep up with the dates.
So between what you were saying about all that we inherit from our ancestors and your own sense of time and money and wealth, how are all of these ideas, the energy, your approach, how has it changed since becoming a father?
For me, becoming a father, it allowed me to express myself more emotionally. I think, like, I was expressing myself so much through writing and spoken word performances and painting now, but I was so callous to suffering and trauma that I can feel a deep sadness and would literally restrict myself from crying. And now, after having my daughter, it's like I have no control no more over the levees. The levees are, so I can cry the joy, I can cry the sadness, and I think that's what changed for me. And then, like, she came at a time of my life where for the first time I'm like really comfortable. Like, you got to understand, like, from the age of 6, being in DC, the crack, the gun violence, the poverty, and then going to prison at 16 and then getting out at 38, not really having nothing of your own and like having to get your own. So once I turned 40, I had my daughter. Then a few months after that, I had my daughter, I got my first car. Then I got my first house in a nice neighborhood outside of the inner city, safe. For me, it's the first time in my life where I've really been like comfortable. Because I've always been like poor and fighting not to be poor, and government's custody, even under the custody of my parents or the government. So this is the first time in my life that, because growing up, I used to watch the 80s movies like the Goonies and the shows like Wonder Years and Doogie House MD and the Cosbys. And I used to be like, damn, man, I want to just live in a safe neighborhood where I don't got to fight. I think people make the mistake of thinking because I used to be an amateur boxer when I was young, and I would fight in the streets just coming up. And I had to tell one of my friends, I was like, man, I never liked fighting. I never liked fighting. Like, what, man? Like, nah, like, we fought and did we had to be. All I wanted to do was to live somewhere safe where I could play my video games and be the smartest dude in the class and make jokes and not have to worry about gunshots and fighting this crew, or I get my mom to buy me these pair of Jordans and I got to worry about somebody robbing me for my sneakers or my Eddie Bauer coat, so growing up with that type of trauma and then getting life at 16 and going to some of the worst prisons in America throughout the country, as a child, man, like I just got used to trauma and not feeling and being cold and numb. And my daughter allowed me to feel. It's something that happened. It wasn't my conscious choosing. It's just something that happens. It happened for me. It might not happen for another person to have a child. But it happened for me. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but it was so powerful that like I couldn't control not crying. It was different. It was powerful. It was an experience. I don't know the words even if it's a word that exists to capture what I felt and what it did for me. It just like opened me up emotionally. And then now in the worldly things, I'm in a good space in life externally and internally to where I really think that now my creativity gonna go to a whole another level because I'm not worried about, somebody shooting and a bullet coming through my house or, like I don't have those worries no more. I'm not worried about my bills or if I'm gonna be able to pay my car note or, you know what I'm saying? So it's a level of existence that I was never afforded. And now I'm interested in seeing not only what it does for my individual creativity, but for my philanthropy, my how I can use it to love on humanity.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, in your first book, A Reason to Breathe, like the poem that hit me the hardest, somebody better cry for me.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, just like getting to know you at that level when it was like over 10 years ago for you to say, for that to be the first thing that you say about, how being a father has changed you. That's just, I'm shook. Honestly, that's crazy.
Yeah, I wrote that poem in 2003, so that's like 19 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost 2 decades,
Yeah.
Wow. I've always wanted to ask this question to an artist, and given how beautiful your mind works, I want to just see what you say. But I've always kind of been bothered by the fact that a lot of like the highest selling Black art is like portraiture, whether that be photography or painting. And that's not to say that art isn't beautiful, amazing, like Gordon Parks, Kerry James Marshall, Dina Lawson. But there's something about it where it's like, I feel like it can commodify the black body and like objectify. And then when it's like what I see as the only Black art that's selling at these astronomical prices to these white people or in a largely white art market, like, do you think that is a thing worth bothered by, or are you interested in why that trend is there for Black portraiture?
For me, it's like my personal philosophy, and I always talk to my wife about this. Is like, for me, I don't get caught up in agreeing or disagreeing because it becomes like attached to like ego in some sense. I just want to understand, right? And that's one of the things in the Forbes magazine. They always quote every issue from the Bible before I get understanding. So for me, what I see is like, I'm looking at the art world today, and post George Floyd, I see like this push towards Black art. But when it's Black art, it's not like, it's just like these portraits of Black people with no messaging. And it's like, it's not challenging. It's just like a Black face on a canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be like embellished with some, because it might be pink or, you know, but it's just a Black face. And it's, to me, it's like, it's no messaging to it. And it's beautiful though. And I don't know what that means to the people who collect it. Maybe they get a message that I don't get. But the thing that I kind of like understand in a sense is like, what's going on with Black art right now is a lot of African painters who don't have the African American experience. And their work, in my opinion, it doesn't challenge the reality of what's been going on with Black Americans. So it's like, I can satisfy, if I'm what we socially construct to be a white collector, I can satisfy my desire to diversify my collection to include Black artists, but I don't have to put anything on my wall that challenges me to think different or to do something about thinking different besides just spending money on a Black artist that's probably represented by a white gallerist who's going to get half of it anyway. And then none of the money from the secondary auction that's auctioned off from the pieces go to the artist anyway. So when you see like Puff Daddy paid $21 million for a Curry James Marshall piece at an auction, that's not going to Curry James Marshall. You know what I'm saying? That's going to somebody who probably owned a Curry James Marshall piece and decided to sell it in the secondary market, you know, which is different from going to Curry James Marshall's studio and giving like, here go $21 million. I'm commissioning you to do the piece, no gallery, no nothing. Like, I'm grabbing it out the studio, you know? So, and that's my understanding of, even in the film world, you see like, who's playing Fred Hampton's role? Who's playing the drug kingpin on Snowfall?
Harriet Tubman too.
It's not an African American.
Mm-hmm.
It's an African. So, and my understanding of it is that I believe that like, I know a lot of good intentioned white people or people who've been socially constructed as being white who want to do good, right? And help repair the harm that's been done to African people in America. But what's going on is that, whether consciously or unconsciously, when you try to engage in the reparations through supporting people who don't have the American experience, who are exported from London or Nigeria or Ghana, who don't have a lived experience of living in America as Black and having access to DNA with ancestral inheritance of chattel property, slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, restrictive covenants, lynchings, war on drugs, mass incarceration, what happens is like you're consuming art and you're supporting artists and filmmakers and actors who don't even have the remedy for what you're trying to repair because they don't have the lived experience. So in your good intention, you're like, nah, I collect Black art. Yeah, but is it really going to the Black American artists who George Floyd shares a lived experience with, who Breonna Taylor, like a lot of y'all were jolted by seeing the 13th documentary, or When They See Us, or what happened to George Floyd, or Breonna Taylor, but you're supporting people that don't have the same experience. They have the same complexion, but not the same lived experience, as what it means to be Black in America. So when I think about Black artists or Black culture, I understand that we have an African diasporic reality with Alexander Pushkin and Alexander Dumas. Like, I understand that, but if you're trying to really repair the Black American experience, then I think that you should begin with the people who have the Black American experience. So, and everybody's not ready to hang a Basquiat or Halim Flowers piece on their wall, because like Basquiat and I, we share the history of both being poets. And if you look at our canvases, we're always writing things. And you look at a Basquiat, you're going to see Jack Johnson, Hank Aaron, Charlie Parker, Joe Louis, you're going to see him putting the crown on Black figures in an abstract way. He's expressing his connection and appreciation for Black royalty. And for me, I paint about love, but I also paint about, historical and contemporary realities of what it means to be Black and to suffer and to even transcend systems and institutions that's been in place to devalue Black life. And I'm very passionate about putting on a canvas about Black enterprise and Black equity and, and Black value and Black culture. And what surprised me the most, more than anything, is that I signed with a Black gallery in New Orleans 2 years ago that has a heavy presence, the Stella Jones Gallery, and good relationship with Black collectors. And I haven't sold one painting through this gallery in 2 years. But then I signed with a gallery owned by a guy from Bulgaria who has 5 locations and who had no living Black artists at that time. I was the only Black artist that he was selling was Basquiat. So when he signed me, I was his first African American, first African anything, Black artist. And I've made like $1 million through selling through mostly white collectors. So like when people ask like, hey, did Jay-Z Swiss Beats in it? I'm like, either they don't know about me or they just waiting for the white people to blow up the value of my work to the point to where as though they're going to have to pay premium. You know what I'm saying? But it's okay. I'm not making a judgment. Everything be about energy and alignment, and these racial constructions is just surface stuff. So at the end of the day, you're going to connect with people who that you connect with on an energy level. And when the alignment is there, it will be there, but it even surprises me and my art dealer who didn't believe that my market would take off with even his client base so fast and so vastly. It surprised him. He thought it would take 12 to 18 months to build my market with his clientele. And then I became his highest selling artist, as far as volume. You know what I'm saying? So, and just understanding that it's like, wow, like what's the lesson in that? Maybe what the messaging that I'm bringing is more needed to them and not to Swiss Beats and Jay-Z and Diddy and, all the other entertainers that we know that collect art. But yeah, you know. But who inspiring me right now? Side statement, not related to the question directly. Definitely West Side Gun, Tyler the Creator. West Side Gun, man, like
West Side Gun
this
is
dude,
crazy,
man. This dude is my favorite rapper, man. Like this dude, what he's doing with rap, wrestling, high fashion, fine arts, storytelling about the streets and prison. Like he say stuff about prison. Oh yeah, he was in the feds. You know what I'm saying? But how he mixes that all together. Cause you know, I used to be like, man, nah, Benny the best. Then you hear like Kanye be spitting Benny and Kanye. But then when I really listened to, because at first West Side Gun was like his voice, I couldn't get his voice. But when I started listening to him, I was like, man, ain't nobody out here messing with West Side, man. To me, like West Side Gun, Kanye West, how they blend all of that, man. You know, Jay-Z the GOAT, you know, and Jay Electronica is just on astronomical. Him and Andre 3000 make aliens. You know what I'm saying? But West Side Gun, man, we gonna send a shout out to West Side Gun, man. I just want to get a man his flowers, you know.
Yeah, for real.
Because I'm big on who inspired me. So West Side Gun, Tyler the Creator. Tyler Creator, a little younger than me. But he's, you know, he's doing phenomenal things, man. And I just love how he's putting it together, you know, with his fashion, his film, his festival, you know, having his own streaming outlet, you know, that was 100% owned by him. I respect that. You know, I respect that because, you know, they tried to counsel him. You know what I'm saying? So
a lot of times.
yeah, you know, and he whether I agree with all of his stances and things of that nature is neither here nor there. I understand him. You know what I'm saying? And through understanding him, you know, I can respect what he's been able to accomplish, you know, because he didn't bend to what would be commercially acceptable. He just stayed true to what was him. And he took his counseling and he took his, you know, being banned in these countries, and, you know, he still accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. And, you know, and I'm just inspired by those two brothers right there. You know, I just think a lot of times our ego doesn't allow us to really like want to say like who's inspiring us, and like, nah, like I'm inspired by those two guys and Jerry Lorenzo. And from a designer perspective, Virgil Abloh, seeing his solo show at the ICA in Boston, being able to collect his hoodie and his book and then his hat, and then seeing him die 3 months after the exhibit, and just getting the opportunity to get introduced to him. I wasn't even hip to him. I mean, I heard of, I wasn't out here for Pyrex and Off-White, and so to lose him and to like study him now and see how he would do things like this, podcasts and interviews with up and coming podcasters and designers, and his desire to give back and create equity for us and people who look like us in the fine art industry, is inspiring, you know. So shout out to Virgil too, you know.
On the point of inspiration though, you know, one of the real great things that you said in Things Our Fathers Never Told Us was about how you're never grown, right? You're always growing.
Right.
And so another question that we have for you is like, who is the person that you're growing into right now here?
For me, like I said, like now, like say like you plant a seed, right? And it's like in the best of soil, you know, and the sun is right, you know, like how they was growing the sugar in Haiti. Haiti was the richest nation in the world because it produced an asset, which was sugar, which was new to the Western world. And they valued it, you know, like cocaine. So because the soil and the light, the temperature, everything was right for the growth of their assets. So for me, I feel like I've always been a seed planted in a back alley with no light and concrete and glass and condoms and dead bodies. And, you know, instead of water, I'm getting malt liquor, but I'm still blossoming. I'm still like creating things, and somehow it may take me a lot to get it out more than somebody else that has the best soil, but I'm still producing equal or superior quality of ideas and products. So now it's like living somewhere like this. It's like now I'm in Haiti. I'm planting seeds in Haiti. So it's like, man, what I can do now, like not having to worry about getting stabbed and going through a lockdown in a prison and, you know, hearing gunshots and catching a stray bullet. And I just feel like now I'm about to, and I'm post 40 now. So it's like a wisdom. So I really think like the best of me is now about to come out. And I don't think it's no coincidence that it's happening now when I'm getting into like fashion and NFTs. And it's like the documentary that we filming, it's like now it's like, okay, you've been used to growing vegetables in the back alley. Now I'm gonna give you some Haiti soil and climate, to where though now you ain't gotta fight through not having the resources and the comfortability and safety and peace of environment to create. Now it's like you good. You know, you in the Caribbean, you got the sun, you got the water, you got the soil, you know. So I really feel like as a manufacturer of culture, like I'm about to produce my best, and it's gonna show. It's gonna show.
Absolutely. That's that think and grow rich point. You hit 40, you go crazy.
Yeah, it's 40. Exactly. You go crazy.
Wow. No, man, talking about inspiring artists though too, like you're now at the top of my list personally, man.
Top.
Just the total integration of your shadow and transcending your rage into love, and just like everything you put into your art and into your poetry, into the culture. Yes, bro.
I appreciate that, man. And a friend of mine, she's a fellow artist from Haiti, lives in America now, and she just was like, the message we was texting each other last night, and she said, this I'm gonna read to you what she said. She said, I believe you. You're about to cause an uprising. Nobody's inspiring anymore. It's a whole lane open waiting for you. Name one person right now really creating or pushing the envelope. Kanye stuck on this divorce. Virgil is dead. Jay and making music. There's nothing happening right now, creatively speaking. And I mentioned like the AWGE, what A$AP Rocky and them doing. I asked, I said, what about that? Because I thought that was cool. So that's a creative collaboration that A$AP Rocky and Nas and them got, AWGE. She said it's cool, but it still don't have no real story behind it like your work does. The world is starving for something as close to pure as possible. We love drugs in America. In Miami, if the coke good, we say it's pure. If you keep moving like you moving, you're going to be the creative drug everybody can't get enough of.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, Nurse Patty, man, she like one of my, if I send her if I do like a song, I'm coming out with my album, but I'm just like leaking it, and I'm not releasing it like on streaming. The only way you'll be able to consume it is I'm just going to drop like 100 or 300 vinyl records. And or if you buy like certain products, you will get a link to where you can stream it. But anyway, like, she just been rocking with me since day one, man. And like, I'm on the Zoom, that's why I ain't been answering the call. My dad right there, he wearing the money team hat. He's supposed to be wearing my hat. Well, look at, you gotta get some more hats out. I'm trying to get him to rock my hat with anything. I don't care what the color coordination about. But yeah, like, you know, the same thing that you all said was the same thing that they said, and I hear that often. And my thing is just that I just want to scale it, not from the sense of just like financial profit motive, but just really from a vibration motive, because like that's what's needed. People need to engage with people that they feel what you feel, and they, you know, with the people saying they feel, and it's like I understand, like, because a lot of artists have contacted me like, how were you able to be successful in the art world and this and that? I'm like, man, it's not the art, it's the energy. It's not the art, it's not the paint. It's not like, I don't feel like my application is up to par with a Curry James Marshall or, you know, a Mark Bradford, but it's the energy that I'm putting into the canvas. And when I talk to the collectors, the conversation, the vibrations that they receiving, and they like, man. And I don't care if it's like billionaires I know who own NBA teams, or just one of my collectors who just was like, she just got the position in the Justice Department to be in charge of the pardons. So anybody that files for like commutations, presidential commutations or clemency, it'll go through her. And she's like, man, I want you to put a painting in my office and that represents second chance. And, you know, just to have that trust where people feel like I could just trust that when I'm in this space and I look at your work, it's going to make me feel a way. And I need to see to be able to recall the conversation, the energy that I feel from you and the work and, you know, the vibe. And that's the thing, you know, just continuing, man. For me, I just want to continue the legacy of our culture, you know, to be able through manufacturing culture to still to be able to create that thing that my grandfather felt when he first heard Love Supreme, or what my mother felt when she first heard, you know, Luther Vandross, you know, A House Is Not a Home, or what I first felt when I heard Reasonable Doubt in 96. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I got the CD player running around on the block selling crack and just listening to the joint all day going crazy. Like, oh, this dude. They're like, who, man, this dude, Jay-Z, who is that? Man, I'm telling you, this dude is different. You know, so, and to still keep that vibe, to keep us inspired as a people, man. And you know, it got to be rooted in love, man. It just got to be at this point, because that's all we missing. It's 44 million people, $1.8 trillion, 1.8 trillion in spending power. The wealth is there. Just understanding what to do with it to create more wealth instead of just spending it. And but it just got to be love there. And if it's not love there, as I named, like with Basquiat, who was a homeless kid and was selling paintings for $1 million before he died in his lifetime, ended up dead in an apartment, you know, 27, with a needle in his arm.
Nah, man, we thank you so much, man. This has been
mind
blowing to say the least.
Yeah.
Thank you, man, for your time, man. I gotta go eat now.
Please,
yeah, got to.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Real Ballers Read podcast. You can check out Halim Flowers on Instagram at Halim Flowers. Be sure to share this episode if you loved it and give us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.